opposition. It's just trying to work the system, take advantage of the system for its own sake. Even though it is opposing God's people, sometimes for reasons it does not even understand itself. The opposition does not realize why it is in such opposition to God's people. The Jews then, they come to Jews and they ask the Jews these questions. Who told you could start this? Who were the men's names? And in verse 11, they record the Jews' answer. And the Jews' answer, they start by saying, we are the servants of the God of heaven and earth. Now, I think this is interesting. They don't say the God of Jerusalem, they don't say the God of Judah or of Israel, they say the God of heaven and earth. Now, from the Jews' perspective, I think that the idea is, listen, we're serving the God of heaven and earth, and if you oppose us, you are opposing him. But as the opposition sends this to King Darius, I think the idea is, they're just this little group of people, and they claim that they worship the God of heaven and earth. This is rebellion talk. Okay, this is revolt kind of speak, O king, and you need to be aware of this. Now, it's ironic that they would be trying to use this title about God against the Jews. The Jews are simply relating the truth. Hey, listen, I don't care how big your community is or whatever, how bad you think, how awesome you think your gods are. The reality is our God is truly the one true God who oversees the heavens and the earth, who oversees kings and rulers. That's our God. You may not like that, but that's what the truth is. And I think it's interesting, too. I'll read one commentator said their use of such a great title for God was somewhat of a challenge. Okay, if you're going to oppose us, you're opposing him. And I think Tanya is going to use this to make the Jews sound treasonous. They're asked a logistical question. Who told you you could build this? What are the names of the guys that are doing this? They answer how? They answer with theological truth. Now, I think that's really interesting. If you recall from chapter 4, the letter that was written there, it has nothing to do with theology. It's all history, and some of the history is sort of rearranged history and concocted history, as the opposition is writing about the Jews' revolts. They had great kings in the past, but this has been a rebellious city, a history of rebellion in this city. Now, when the Jews are asked this question, they provide a theological answer. And again, I kind of want you to see this in verse 11 and 12. Thus they answered us, saying, now the Jews are saying this, we are the servants of the God of heaven and earth, and are rebuilding this temple, the temple that was built many years ago, which a great king of Israel built and finished. But, now again, notice how they are recounting history. But because our fathers had provoked the God of heaven to wrath. Now, this was not about provoking Nebuchadnezzar to wrath. It was not about provoking the Babylonian Empire to wrath. There were not political causes or social causes for what's going on. For the Jews, they are honest enough to recognize that the difficulties that we have gone through have spiritual roots, have spiritual causes. It is because we rebelled against God. We provoked the God of heaven to wrath. And then they say this, he gave them into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar. Which says what? Nebuchadnezzar wasn't the one pulling the strings here. Once again, God is the one pulling the strings. And again, I think this would sound, even though they're trying to explain this honestly, I think this would be fodder for treason in the mind of the opposition. They're going to send this to Darius, and they're going to say, O Darius, O king, O great king, they see you as nothing more than a mere puppet of their God. These people do business. You better get in here and stop them from doing what they're doing. Have you ever had somebody take truth and throw it back in your face? Let them. It's still true. It's still true truth. And that truth is going to stand, no matter how they use it or how they abuse it. So they're asked this question, they give a theological answer. They don't, punt to, well, there were these social issues, there were these political issues. They say this was an issue against God himself. And I'm just going to kind of streamline the rest of this. They're working under, they say, even after they explain the theological reasons, in verse 13 they say, hey, we are working under the decree of Cyrus, king of Babylon. Cyrus issued this decree. He mentioned the gold and silver are going to be returned to the temple. In verse 15, take these utensils, put them back in the temple that you're going to build. And then in verse 16, they mention Sheshbazzar, who he's brought up in chapter 1, and as you recall, he may have been the same person as Zerubbabel, just a Persian name for Zerubbabel. He may have been a different person that was working with Zerubbabel. It's hard to tell. But they're saying, not only are we giving you a theological reason, we're going to give you accurate facts about how this happened. But in verse 16, you do notice they kind of trip on something here. Again, Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundations of the house of God in Jerusalem, and from then until now it has been under construction. Is that true?
No.
In a broad technical sense, maybe? I mean, that was kind of the intent. God's people are trying to do what is right, but the reality is they've kind of been tripped up by their own apathy. They should have had this thing built 10 years ago. But because they lost their focus, they lost their priorities, and they had to start rebuilding this temple, now they're facing some difficulty here. Because they didn't keep on task and do what they were supposed to do. And Tatani hears this and says, I know buildings are big, I know you got to build the temple. It doesn't take 15 years to build the temple. That thing has been sitting there for a long time. And for him, this looks suspicious. He doesn't believe their story. He asks in verse 17, now if it pleases the king, let a search be conducted in the king's treasure house, which is there in Babylon. If it be that a decree was issued by Cyrus, he says, no, there wasn't such a thing. They're just being rebellious. You need to come in here and wipe these people out. A decree issued by King Cyrus to rebuild this house of God at Jerusalem, and let the king send to us his decision concerning the matter. We're a little concerned. This was a decree that went out 15 years ago. Can they find this? What are they going to do in light of this opposition? Chapter 6 will resolve this. Will show us what happened, and will kind of give us two conclusions. One that is a political conclusion, and then it will remind us that there's more going on beyond just a political conclusion. There's a spiritual conclusion to this story as well. The reality is God's people get back on track. They are motivated by the prophetic voice, by the very word of God, working powerfully again within their midst. When they do that, they begin to face significant opposition. That happens to us as well. Whether you're a presidential candidate or just an ordinary person, and you're trying to do what is right, you're going to face opposition. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to stay on task? Am I going to let that throw me off course of doing what I believe God wants me to do? We will finish this up, chapter 6, next hour, and I'll ask Terry to come up and lead us in Psalm 397. 397.